talking, but there is an important message that we want to share and that we want to talk about tonight. And that is the courage to coexist. In this election, as we know, and in this time in the world, coexisting seems to be a curse word. It feels like a curse word. Our ability to coexist with those who are different than us is getting harder and harder to do. And it makes sense because the world is becoming more polarized. Because our identity is no longer rooted in who we are, whether in the eyes of our Creator or not, but in the eyes of our behavior, our choices, who we think is a good person versus a bad person, what we think is good or bad. It's framed in these platitudes of morality that don't mean anything. And because of that, if you are different than me, I will naturally like you less, which is not okay. This is not the world that God gave us. And so, instead of sitting here and berating people for this, I was meditating on how to attack this. And I think in order to have the courage to coexist, we have to know what it means to coexist and what it means to not coexist. So what does it mean to coexist? Very simply put, if you coexist, you don't accept wickedness, but you don't pursue correction. Again, you don't accept wickedness, but you don't pursue correction. Does that mean that there are moments to be patient with people who are broken? Yes. And does that mean on the other side that there are times to correct? Yes. Coexisting is meeting the moment, is doing what is necessary in the moment, not setting up, this is what I'm always going to do every single time. Life doesn't work that way. Our responsibility as Christians is to learn how to coexist in a world that isn't necessarily our resting place, okay? And so, always ask yourself, when you ask yourself about coexisting, what does the moment need? What does the moment need? Is this a moment that screams for correction? Or is this a moment that screams for patience? You will coexist when you find the center. When you find the center. And so there's really coexisting, which is where we want to be. And then there is chaos, which is when all we can do is try and kill each other because we disagree with one another, which is where the world feels like it is. But there's actually another place. So there's coexisting. This is what we want. This is our standard, okay? And then there's chaos. This is all the nonsense and the madness that we're dealing with, where if you're not like me, you disagree with me, I don't like you, you're a bad person. But there's actually a third face to all of this that is also not okay. Do you know what that face is? Co-enthronement. Co-enthronement. Do you know what it means to be co-enthroned? Two masters. Co-enthronement is the permitting of wickedness, the accepting of wickedness, the normalization of wickedness. We don't do that. See, to coexist is not to accept everything that is thrown at you and everything the world tells us. That is not coexisting. That is co-enthronement. That is saying that whatever is here is equal to whatever is up there. Not a thing. Not a thing. So no, we don't buy co-enthronement. And yet, we do not devolve into chaos. The problem with the world is we're one of the two extremes, as always. And we talk about it in this meeting, that we cannot be the extremes. It is not burn everybody that doesn't carry a cross. And at the same time, it's not leave your cross in the trash because it's causing a problem. We must coexist. We must find the center, and that takes courage. Because in coexisting, you will not always have comrades and companions. But in coexisting, you will always have Christ. And that is why we have the courage. And so by the grace of God, what we'll meditate on is how can we find the courage to coexist in this world? And what does it mean to coexist in this world? And the first thing is that we must correct. We must correct. Abuna, wait, didn't you just say, don't look to correct? Who do you think needs the most correction in the world? Who needs the most correction in the world? Selves. Me. Correction in myself is the most important thing we can try and do. Correction in ourselves. Why is it that we must correct ourselves to coexist? What is the benefit of correcting myself, of self-examination in coexisting? What do you think? One less person you have to correct? Okay. Anybody else? What do you think? What's the purpose of coexisting? Or sorry, not coexisting. What is the benefit of correction? Why is it that we have to correct ourselves? What's important about that? It humanizes them, right? How does it humanize them? How does it humanize them? Anybody know? How does correcting yourself make someone else a human? So as you see weakness in yourself, then you lower your standard for yourself. And because you give yourself grace, how could you not give grace to others? Do we see? Self-examination is the medicine of coexistence. You know the crazy thing about the world today? Nobody can say, I'm wrong. I don't care what candidate you buy. It doesn't mean a freaking thing. It's wrong. Get out of here if you think you can't say, I am wrong. If I can't look at myself and see my brokenness first, how dare I speak to anyone else? And this is why the world's getting angry. Because if you will not accept correction by correcting yourself first, everybody else hunkers down too. And all we've done is build little silos. We have blown up the bridges because we have lost the blessing of humility. So it takes courage to coexist, and you find that courage by courageously challenging yourself. When you look in the mirror, who do you see? Are you the beloved of Christ? Are you the beloved of Christ? Yes, no, maybe so. Maybe y'all are tired of me already. Come on. Are you the beloved of Christ? I hope so. I hope you know that. If you don't, you should. Okay. We are the beloved of Christ. Does that mean we come without imperfections? No. We got tons. The beloved of Christ is still a beautiful disaster. That's what you are. A beautiful disaster. Every single one of you. Me too. Okay. And in that humility, in looking at yourself and seeing your own brokenness, now you are becoming brave. Now you are becoming brave, because now you can bravely coexist with others. It's brave to see inadequacy in ourselves, but it is cowardly to put others down. And it's cowardly to normalize our brokenness. See, here's the thing. Remember I said there's coexisting, that's what we want. Then there's chaos, that's everybody's blowing each other up. And then there is co-enthronement, right? Those are the ones. Coexisting is bravery, knowing that I have to humanize others because I myself am broken. Chaos is saying everybody else is wrong and look how bad they are, so what does it matter what I do? And then co-enthronement is saying, well, if they do it, I might as well too. You can't solve anything. You can't coexist if you are not willing to correct yourself. We must have eyes to see our brokenness so that we give God the opportunity to fix what's broken in us. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 15, verses 31 to 32. The ear that hears the rebukes of life will abide among the wise. He who disdains instruction despises his own soul, but he who heeds rebuke gets understanding. The one who hears the rebukes of life will abide among the wise. You want to be wise? And wisdom is how you coexist, right? That you don't get sucked into somebody's world, but you also don't lose them either. You do that, you become wise when the ear hears rebuke, correction, and let the rebuke come from yourself first. So the first thing we do to have the courage to coexist is we must live a life of correction so we can humanize others. The second thing that we do is we canvas. We canvas. Okay. So you ever made a anybody ever had a canvas before? And who likes to paint? Who likes to paint? That's adorable. We'll do a paint and pray thing sometime. I like that. Okay. Okay. So when you have a blank canvas, is that exciting? What is it? What do you feel about a canvas when you see it? Just blank canvas. What do you think? Someone give me a word. Blank canvas. Opportunity. What else? Purpose. What else? Anybody else? Potential. Like it. All those are good. Every single person is right about that. The canvas of life is the most exciting and terrifying thing all at the same time. But when you think about a canvas and how big it is, and you hear the word opportunity, what do you think? It comes to your mind that even if a couple of details in the upper left corner don't look so awesome, are those going to be the things everybody notices when you paint? That bottom right corner, is that going to be what everybody thinks about? No, what are they going to see? The whole picture. You want to coexist, stop focusing on what divides and start focusing on what unites. See the canvas. See the whole canvas. More importantly, let me ask you all a question. Who thinks you're done growing today? Raise your hand. I don't mean height-wise. We've had this talk already. It goes poorly every time. I don't mean height-wise, all right? Most of you, yes, you've petered out. I have too, okay? It's devastating. It's fine. Anyway. Come on. Who's done changing? Who's done becoming a better person? Who's retired that life, quote unquote? Anybody? Why not? Why not? Why not? Every day is a new canvas. The best thing about God, guys, He's not done with you. The problem in this world today is that we are done with people where they are. This is who he is, he's awful. This is who she voted for, she's awful. This is who this is who that, awful, 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 awful. We have made determinations based on who someone is today, not who they can be tomorrow. We have a responsibility as Christians to hope in the best that God can do, that he is not done working with you yet. So when you look at someone that you have a hard time getting along with, when you look at someone that you can't connect with, when you look at someone who is fundamentally different than you, whether it's a parent, a friend, a stranger, someone on TV, I don't care who it is, when you see that person, ask yourself an important question. Is God done with them yet? If you think God is done with them yet, write their obituary for them. It's a wrap. God will call them home. But you and I both know he's not. So how dare I, and how dare you, and how dare anyone stop writing the story right there? Look at the whole canvas. Keep looking at the canvas. Let him keep drawing. Let him keep working. When you coexist, you realize that the canvas is not done. And that gives you grace for people. This is who they are today, not who they'll be forever. When it's chaos, that little dot in the corner, that's who they are. That 10% in the corner, that's what's broken. That's what's wrong. That's who they are. When you co-enthrone, you say, oh, a couple dots there. Let me do a couple more right here. Let me show you all mine. Let's be broken together. Not the move, peeps. Not the move. We have to hope in what God is still doing. In Ephesians, he tells us that all of us are his handiwork, created for good works in him. So if he is our handiwork, or we are his handiwork, created for good works, is it just the Copts? Is it just the Christians? Is it just the people who voted for the godly candidate, quote unquote? No. He's not done with anybody. So stop writing obituaries and start living your obligation to see the whole canvas. Have hope for what God can do in people and with people. Don't stop looking and praying for the best version of everyone you meet. That's what we have to do. And that hope we read about in the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, verses 22 to 26, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. It says, "Through the Lord's mercies we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I hope in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. It is good that one should hope and wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." Not just the salvation for yourself, but the salvation for others. Don't stop praying for people to be the best version of themselves. You have a problem with a family member, you have a problem with a friend, you have a problem with somebody at work, you have a problem with a sin, or a person in your life that is not on the same page as you. Don't stop praying for that person. That's how you coexist. Because when you pray for them, what are you asking God to do? You're asking God to work in them. Does that mean God is with them or away from them? He's with them. You're asking God to be on them. So if you're asking God to be on them, how can you be done with them? Because when you throw them out, what do? You throw out God too. Baby and the bathwater. No bueno. That's not how we roll. That's not who we are. That's not how we coexist. And that is bravery, to understand that people are imperfect. And there are things that they will do that are not awesome. But we're never done with them. We might create distance, but we're not done. So the first thing, in order to have the courage to coexist, we must correct ourselves. The second is to look at the canvas of others and realize God is not done with them. And the last thing to do, and listen closely, because I'm going to keep it simple, call out for help. Call out. If you don't hear anything I say tonight, listen to this, because this is the heart of what is missing in our country. It's what's missing in our lives. You heard everything I just said about correcting yourself and how to canvas for others and see all of them. How do you think you're going to do it? You're going to walk out of here, okay, Abuna, I'm going to pray for everyone in my life, and I'm going to look myself in the mirror and say how much I suck and have to improve and blah, 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 blah. And you're going to do a great job on Wednesday. And come Sunday, you're going to be like, I'm good. No, I hate those people. Screw everything. Let's go back to the way it was. It's easier. Right? Why? Who's doing the work? Who's doing the work? Let me hear it. Who's doing the work? You. When you are doing the work alone, the work always falls short. The work always falls short. But we call out for help. You want the courage to coexist? Ask for it. You want the courage to put down chaos? Ask for it. You want the courage not to be seduced by co-enthronement? Ask for it. When you don't ask God for what you need, you don't get what you need. You know, the funny thing is, you're always good at asking God for what you want. God, I know I should be asking you for patience with my mom, but I really want a boyfriend. God, I know I should be asking you for long suffering to endure with this difficult person that I work with, but I really just want you to get me a new job somewhere else. God, I really know that I'm supposed to be praying for this person in my life that always crosses my boundaries and makes me feel awful about myself. But I really want you just to kind of swallow them up from the ground, Sons of Korah style, you know? Guys, that is cowardice, not courage. What are you doing? You're trying to do the hard work, and then when you can't do it, you're taking the easy way out. Doesn't work. How are you going to shut God out? How are you going to edge God out of his work? You are his handiwork, created in him for him. How are you going to edge him out? Edge God out. Think about that for a second. Edge, E, God, G, out. Oh, what is that? Ego. The reason that we cannot coexist, the reason that the world is ripping itself apart, ego. And why do we have ego? Because we keep leaving God in the room, not bringing him to every room. Stop edging God out of the obstacles in your life. You want the courage to coexist? Ask him for it. The Lord answers when you ask, because when you are asking, you are telling him, I am sick, Lord. I know I can't do this alone. When do we get to this point? I can't do this alone. When do we get to this point? Anybody know? Rock bottom. Nothing else works. We have literally pulled every lever, opened every door, and that's when we say, you know, God, maybe we should do this together. And he's like, bro, where you been for the last 5 years on this journey? I've been telling you this. And God is telling us this today. We have people that are going to look at us differently out there in the world. Why don't you ask for the grace to deal with them according to the way God would deal with them? Why would we limit God by not letting him into our lives? If you want the courage to coexist and you don't ask God for that courage or try to do it with him, you'll never get it. And I'll just leave you with this last point about this. It is not brave to fight battles that you cannot win by yourself. It is foolish. It is not wise. It is not wise to fight battles that you know you will not be able to last in if God is meant to be there. Don't think you can do it all. Bring him to it all. And when you bring him to it all, he will bring you through it all. St. Augustine teaches us something about sickness, in the sickness of pride. He says that in the Psalms, it says the Lord heals all of your sicknesses. Never fear, all of your sickness will be healed. You say they are big ones, but the doctor is even greater. For an all-powerful doctor, there is no such thing as an incurable sickness. Simply let yourself be cared for. Do not push away his hand. He knows what to do. Do not be happy only when he acts with gentleness, but bear with it when he prunes. Accept the unpleasantness of the cure by thinking of the healing it will bring you. He who made you never to become sick, because he made us perfect in the beginning. If you would keep his laws, will he not heal you? He who made the angels and in recreating you will make you equal and above the angels. Will he not heal you? He who made heaven and earth, will he not heal you after having made you in his image? He will heal you, but you must consent to be healed. He heals every sickness perfectly, but he does not heal it in spite of himself. He heals it for you and for him. Beautiful words from Augustine. If you are tired of the sickness of division in this world, be a unifier. Meet people with smiles, patience, and understanding, not with derision, disrespect, and disconnection. Do not allow co-enthronement to be your excuse to not work hard at being a good Christian. No, you are not unified to those who do not love God by living the way they live, but giving the way God gives. Ask him for the help, and he will do the work. To sum it up, the 3 ways that we live the life of courage and coexistence. Number 1, correct yourself. Always look in the mirror first and do the work. Number 2, canvas. See the whole picture of a person, not just the dot. And remember, the Lord is not done with them or us. And last but not least, call out. Ask the Lord to join you in every battle. And be amazed how many of these things he wins. It's amazing, guys. I heard it multiple times in the prayers tonight. Whoever sits in the seat of this presidency has no power unless God gave it to them. Don't ever forget that when we hear crazy things out there. It doesn't matter who's in that seat. It never has and it never will. And instead of sitting there blaming the world for why it's broken, let us be part of what puts it back together in him and to honor him. And glory be to God forever and ever. Amen. Questions, comments, concerns? I know everybody wants to in and out. That's why they don't want to talk. Anybody? Y'all know how this works? Yep, go ahead.
Might be a little, but so we always, it's kind of nature in us to look at the bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get like 5 really good grades, and then the one class you get like the lowest, that's what we focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that is something you can get over?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the question basically for those that didn't hear is we're always concentrating on the worst in our own lives. We notice the worst things the most. And if that's the way, like, will we ever get over that with people? The ones that bother us the most, can we ever get over that? Absolutely. In the end, everything is about spiritual perception. If I look at what you're talking about, 90% of my life rocks and 10% sucks. And I actually look at that pie chart. You have to embrace the 10% that sucks. You have to say, okay, that hurts, right? Validate that feeling. But at the same time, put that feeling in its appropriate place. This is a moment, not a master, right? And it's the same thing with someone who's hard to deal with. Number 1, we reorient them according to our boundaries, correct? And then number 2, after we reorient them, then we do the work of learning how to deal with them according to that boundary. And realizing my interactions are only once every 2 weeks. It's only 30 minutes at dinner. It's only this. It's only that. And once I have this mind, I'm able to cope with someone that maybe is hard for me. But if I'm also doing the work of examining, are they hard for me because of me or because of them? And number 2, am I realizing God's not done with them yet? And asking God for the strength to do this, that's how we get there. Does that answer your question? That's a good one. Anybody else? Yeah.
How can we strive for perfect humility to take away that pride?
Perfect humility. Love that. So first off, realize that perfect is the enemy of good, right? And so God is perfect. We are not. You will never be, you will have moments of perfection, but you will never be perfect at a virtue, okay? So you will have moments where you live a virtue perfectly, but you don't aspire to live the virtue perfectly. You aspire to return to the virtue perfectly, meaning every time you stray from the virtue, you run back to it. The way that you live, quote unquote, perfect humility is you check yourself when you fall, and then you return back to it. You be accountable to those that you weren't perfect with, whether it's in confession or in dealing with the person who you put down. And this is how you really perfect the life of humility. Because it's not about getting it right. It's about, or not getting it right every time. It's about learning how to get back to what is right. That's what's different. That's what changes us. Did I answer your question? Awesome. Anybody else? Yep, back.
So you kept on mentioning that we should always pray for whatever we want. So Pope Carlos kept on praying all the time, and and he and he and I heard a sermon once that whenever we pray, bad thoughts don't come into our mind. Whenever we pray for stuff to God, that they should come to our mind. And Pope Carlos says that lifestyle. So how do we live that lifestyle also?
So live the lifestyle of bad thoughts not coming into our minds. I mean, in the end, I think whenever you invoke the name of the Lord, when you pray, you create a shelter and a cocoon around your heart, right? Does that mean the devil doesn't fight you? No, he fights you. Absolutely. He'll fight you. And he warred with the saints as they prayed. We know this. But Abuna Carlos Tedros told us this one time when he was here. He said the one thing the devil can't replicate is humility. It's the one thing that always pushes him away. And that's why St. Anthony the Strong taught us, or St. Anthony the Great rather taught us, that when we say, I am weaker than your weakest to the devils, then we are telling God to stand in front of us. It is that humility that protects us and allows that prayer to continue to be protected. Okay? Thank you for that. Anybody else? Going once? Oh, okay, yes.
Okay. I know you said that it's like not fair to like look at people and be like, oh, like cut them off because God's not done working on them. But at what point does someone like continuously disrespecting you? At what point are you able to say like, I don't want any part in this like friendship or relationship or anything, and that like you need to take a step back?
So this question was kind of sort of touched on in the boundaries talk that we gave. When people are unhealthy in your life and don't respect your boundaries, you have to create boundaries. You have to reorient them. Boundaries are not meant to ever cut people off, okay? It's meant to create a healthy distance so the relationship can function. And so if somebody is in your core, someone that you see consistently and deal with consistently, but that person's constantly disrespecting you and pushing your boundaries, that person's being moved into the acquaintance and stranger section, okay? And so we reduce the frequency of interaction. We learn how to be warmly cold, right? Where we see them and we're kind to them when we see them and we're respectful, but we're not hyper engaging and we don't go deep. And we accept that it's going to be a little bit different. Now, you might get friction because of that. And if the person's emotionally available and mature enough for feedback, then you share it. And if not, then it's okay to say, you know, things are fine. I'm just kind of dealing with my own things and I'm going through my own reawakening, so to speak. But never until you try, especially if somebody is in a core circle or an inner circle in your life. That make sense? Anyone else? Going once. Going twice. Let's take one to add anything. All right. Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen. Let's pray together.
Have mercy